Bill Gates once said, whether I'm in the office, at home, or on the road, I always have a big stack of books that I'm looking forward to reading. Bill isn't kidding. No matter how busy his schedule is, he typically gets through around 50 books per year. He isn't the only billionaire who does this. Reading seems to be a common thread among the world's most successful people. But if you're like me, you're probably wondering, where do they even get the time? Sometimes it feels like making time for reading is downright impossible. Well, I'm definitely not a billionaire, but today, I'm going to share the easy 5-step formula that took me from reading 3 books to 40 books per year. Step number 1 is to make reading a daily habit. You need to make reading a non-negotiable part of your routine. Just like brushing your teeth or checking your emails, you need to carve out a specific time of the day, every day, that's dedicated only to reading. And the beauty of this is that you can fit that time wherever is most convenient for you, whether it's in the morning with your coffee, maybe right before lunch, right before bed, or in the case of my brother, on the toilet. Ultimately, it's not about finding time, it's about making time. Once you intentionally prioritize reading and it becomes a daily habit, it's gonna feel automatic. I find that morning is the best time for me because I can just get it over with. I also have more mental bandwidth because I'm not tired from using my brain the whole day. And this will prevent you from making the excuse that you feel tired or lazy. Okay, so make reading a daily habit. Now, should you read for 1 hour, 2 hours, the entire morning? In the next step, I'll outline exactly how much time you should spend reading. Step number 2 is to make your sessions shorter. I know this might sound counterintuitive, but trust me, it's a game changer. Now, there are 2 key reasons why short sessions are so effective. So let me break it down for you. First of all, it's easier to stick to. If you know you have to read for 15 to 20 minutes, it's going to be much easier to stick to that goal as opposed to reading for 1 to 2 hours every single day. It's going to feel much more manageable and ultimately sustainable in the long run. And as we all know, consistency is the key to building any habit. Now, the second reason why short reading sessions are so effective is retention. Imagine reading 90 pages in a single day. Now, imagine spreading those 90 pages out over the course of 6 days. With the second approach, your retention of everything that you've read is going to be much better and stronger. Your brain really needs time to process everything that you're reading and all the information that you're taking in. And short, consistent sessions is the way to do that. It's like cramming an entire pizza in one night. You can do it, but you're probably going to regret it when you can't move, or in this case, when you don't remember anything. Okay, so how much should you actually read per session? I think it's very important I address this question because when I told my brother to have more frequent short reading sessions, he ended up reading a page per day. Okay, jokes aside, there are 2 ways that you can approach this. If you prefer tracking by time, I found that 15 to 20 minutes of reading per day is probably the sweet spot. It's long enough to make meaningful progress, but also short enough to fit into a busy, jam-packed day. Now, if you don't want to go by time and you want to go by pages, I think a clear, maintainable goal is around 10 to 20 pages per day. For me, this range fits pretty easily into my schedule, but it also gets me moving through books pretty quickly. Okay, so now that you know how long to read for, I want to give you a tip on keeping yourself motivated with reading. I'll talk about that tip in the next step. Step number 3 is to create a reading list. I know, this might seem like a simple idea, but it can actually generate a lot of excitement and enthusiasm for your reading journey. I personally created a Google Doc where I have all of the different genres that I'm interested in, from personal finance to self-help to science and everything in between. I try and read books from each of these genres to make sure I'm getting a well-rounded reading experience. So why should you bother having a reading list? Well, there are 2 key reasons why. First, it makes me genuinely excited about reading. When I see all of the books lined up one by one, it makes me excited to dive into whichever the next one is. It's like having a Christmas list, except with books. Now, the second benefit of having a reading list is that it helps me keep momentum. The minute I finish a book, I know exactly what I'm going to be reading next. There's no downtime, no time to lose the habit of reading. I simply move into the next book. So if you want to stay excited about reading and keep momentum on your journey, create a list. Okay, now what if you create a list, you start reading a book on the list, and all of a sudden you find out it's not all that interesting? Should you finish the book, even if you begin to hate reading because of it? We'll talk about that in the next step, so I'll see you there. Step number 4 is to read what you enjoy and drop what you don't. If you're forcing your way through books that seem uninteresting and boring, it's gonna make you hate reading. So think about the genres, the authors, and the topics that genuinely excite you and stick to those. I know firsthand that when you prioritize what you're interested in, you absolutely will have time for reading and you will make time for it. I used to try and push through all of the classics because I felt like I should. On one occasion, I was reading Moby Dick by Herman Melville. And this is, by all accounts, a literary gem. So I'm not knocking this book, but I genuinely couldn't seem to enjoy it for some reason. I actually got to the point where I was hoping that the whale would destroy the ship so that the book would end. My reading pace slowed down so much that it felt like the book was actually expanding in length as I was reading it. When I finally allowed myself to switch to a book that I was more interested in, my pace picked right back up. So there we have 4 steps for making reading a daily habit. But what about when life gets in the way? Sometimes we get extremely busy and the strength of our habits and our consistency is tested. In the 5th and final step, we'll address that. Step 5 is to always have a book with you. Whether it's a physical book, an ebook, or even an audiobook. Having one close by means that we can read during moments we usually waste, like waiting in line, sitting on the train, or even while eating lunch. You would be surprised how quickly these minutes add up. A 10-minute bus ride can turn into a chapter per day, and a chapter per day can turn into a whole new book every couple of weeks. This approach is like finding change in your couch cushions. Little bits of time that you didn't think much of initially can add up to something significant. There was one time my flight got delayed at the airport. Instead of getting frustrated, I pulled out my book and I began reading. I managed to finish half of the book in the time I spent waiting. What could have been wasted time turned into productive time. I mean, at this point, I was almost hoping for one more delay so I could finish the final few chapters. Wishful thinking. So there you have it. The bulletproof 5-step plan to help you read no matter how busy you are. These tips have helped me hit 40 books per year, and I'm confident they can do the same for you. If you found this helpful whatsoever, feel free to subscribe, like the content, and share it. And I'll see you in the next one.